The metrics are that Luma has met 84% of its metrics, according to the Puerto Rico Energy Bureau. That's a pretty impressive number. How do you all see it?
Well, David, what we are doing is we're transforming this company. So these metrics are a part of that transformation. For example, we have metrics for number of outages. And number of outages, for example, last year we improved 30%. We have metrics for connecting rooftop solar. And in rooftop solar, for example, we've connected 28,000 rooftop solars in the last several months, which is transforming this utility because it's going straight from just a generator to the home. Now you got rooftop solar, and we're going to have also utility scale renewables. So it's going more towards a renewables type company also.
But so, what does meeting 84% of the metrics say?
Some of the metrics we're still working with the regulator, and to me, 84% says we're doing well. However, some of the metrics that they're measuring on are not under our control. Mm-hmm. So we're working with the regulator to make sure that we're graded on those metrics that we can control.
Understood. So for a lot of people, and most people who will see this might not be Puerto Rican in the U.S., so for them this will be a first introduction to Luma. What is Luma?
I can take that. Luma is a combination of hardworking people. Doesn't matter where you're coming from. We have local talent. We have people all over the world assisting in rebuilding this electrical grid on the island. Luma is an initiative that came, and you can see our training people in the background. These are all local people being trained to become journeyman linemen. We have a lot of people that have come back from the U.S. that are coming here, and they want to rebuild the island. And it's a group of people that we are fully committed on rebuilding the island to where it needs to be.
Luma is hope.
Say that again.
For me, Luma is hope. I come 26 years from Prepa, and I see a lot of things that I didn't see in Luma. Like today, we are seeing trainings, we're seeing more tools, we're seeing diversity, we're seeing opportunities. And that's for me, it's what's Luma.
Luma is a customer service-centric organization too. We're here to transform the way that Puerto Ricans receive service. Obviously, we all agree that this grid needs to be restored. So we're here to really make sure that Puerto Ricans receive the best service ever, not only a customer service center, but the whole utility is available here to make sure that this customer service is better than ever.
I was told that 97% of the people working here are Puerto Rican. Is that true?
It's true.
There's a large percentage. It's probably correct. I don't have the figures on top of my mind, but that sounds right.
Okay.
I'm Puerto Rican, and I just relocated back from the U.S.
Is that right?
Because I want to be part of the rebuilding of the island. That's what I'm here for.
Where were you in the U.S.?
Chicago.
And what were you doing?
Working for a utility over there.
Utility there?
Yeah.
And you're Puerto Rican?
Yes, I am Puerto Rican.
And you're Puerto Rican?
No, I'm from the U.S.
You're from the U.S. Where are you from, Don?
Houston.
Houston. Okay. So talk to me about outages, right? So the Puerto Rico Energy Bureau has said that the outages under Luma are fewer than what they were under the government-owned utility, but the outages under Luma are lasting longer. Why is that?
That's a good question, David. You might know we inherited a grid that was completely neglected for a couple of decades. So when we came in, last year was about stabilizing the grid because it wasn't really in a free fall with outages. So what we're doing is, as we are improving the service, we are reducing the number of outages. Now, it's taking a little longer because we're fixing the grid. We're not just going over there and clipping one branch and that's it. We're making a more permanent fix on the repairs we're doing.
And adding to that, there's also a safety culture that we have introduced. And you can ask around, one of the key items and aspects from Luma is the safety culture. Back in the days, safety was not a priority as it is right now. And people, every time they start a job, they do a safety briefing, and you went to that right before getting here. We do a safety briefing, we analyze the risk of the scope that we are executing before we actually go into construction. We can do better, absolutely, and that's what we're here for.
How much of the grid has been rebuilt?
We are just basically starting to rebuild the grid. We have 209 active projects that represent about $5.5 billion of federal dollars. But it takes time to get engineered and to get in the field. But we do have projects out into the field right now that we're working on.
I know our viewers in the States are going to ask, what's happened since Maria 5 years ago? Anything? And the reality is nothing has happened in terms of rebuilding, right? How long do you expect that to take, Don?
We are rebuilding the grid every day, Dave. Every day we make improvements. When we say we haven't rebuilt, we haven't started the big projects.
Right.
But we go out every day and we rebuild segments of line, we rebuild poles. We're rebuilding every day.
What will big projects look like when they start?
Big projects will look, we're going to take big transmission lines and make them more resilient, more wind resistant. We're going to take distribution lines that are today past their service life, and we're going to restore them. We're going to do a lot of the vegetation management. So we're going to take usually a circuit, whether it's transmission or distribution, from start to end, and rebuild it and make it more resilient.
And I would like to add, David, I know it's been 5 years after Maria, but Luma has been in operations only 1 year. We have actually 14 capital projects going on as we speak.
Yep.
That they are part of rebuilding the island. We are being proactively working, my team and the operations team, on taking critical lines, improving those. And we put back in service, I would say, a dozen of transmission lines that were out of service since Hurricane Maria.
Say that again?
We have put back in service about a dozen of transmission lines that were out of service since Hurricane Maria.
How many transmission lines need to be replaced in total across the island?
We do have about 2,000, almost 3,000 miles in transmission lines.
So a lot.
It's a lot. So we're gonna start rebuilding those. Actually, we are currently right now doing work in one of the lines that goes from Bayamon to Manatee, replacing insulators. And that's part of the scope that we are doing to rebuild the transmission line.
Don, the rebuilding that is being done, is it being done with the same type of equipment, or is this newer equipment that will be more resilient in future storms?
This new equipment we're installing is the modern equipment, and it's also more resilient. That will withstand a higher wind speed than the previous installations. But it's definitely a more modern substations, modern equipment that we're installing.
How old is this grid that y'all are rebuilding?
60, 70 years old.
67
And
years
one of the
old.
things that when Luma started, we noticed that standards were non-existent. So we have to develop new standards. And we are taking advantage of the FEMA grants and the two programs, 428 and 406. 406 is a mitigation. So we can build to our current building code, but we are not stopping there. We want to build a more stronger grid that can resist up to 160 miles an hour. And that will make us a grid more resilient and,
Who does the rebuilding of the grid? Linemen, like these people here, being trained?
We have a combination of our internal people plus contractor people.
But I'm talking about like folks in the field, the manpower that takes it out of the ground, puts it in the ground. Those are linemen that will do that?
Those will be field linemen.
Field linemen. Got it.
We'll have vegetation management crews.
Right.
We'll have substation technicians.
Right. How many linemen does Luma employ?
We have 1,300 out of the 3,000 men and women that are working in the field towards the installations and maintenance.
Okay. So the number that I was given was it's less than 400. Am I being given wrong information?
You've been given a subset of a number.
Tell me what you mean.
You heard earlier when Juan was explaining that there's different levels
Yes.
of people that go on the field.
Yes.
And it probably, the number you're looking that they gave you was a subset or one of those categories.
So does the 1,300 include folks like these that are just starting and still learning?
It includes people like this. It includes people that are different levels of training. It includes people that are out there working and helping them build the lines as well.
So I would say 1,300 are a combination of people that are in the field day in, day out, doing work in different areas. All of them are needed to rebuild the grid. That's the focus that we need to take on this.
And David, let me add one more thing. I've got 40 years experience working
Yep.
in utilities.
Yep.
And to transform a utility, it takes more than just people on the field. Very important job. I don't want to take anything away from them.
Of course.
But it takes many people, technical people, customer interface people, takes IT type people. It takes all of these people to transform and modernize the grid.
Of the 1,300 employees that you have, appreciating that many of them come from various sectors, how many of those 1,300 employees can be boots on the ground to make the big power changes today?
We have the majority of those 1,300 are those people already. These are 32 of those, but the majority of those are already trained and in different levels. So the crew complement is what's important. You don't want the highest skilled person as a grounds person, for example. So it takes a crew complement to really make it more effective, more efficient.
But I think people in Puerto Rico see progress in terms of bucket trucks. I appreciate what you're talking about, how the back office is important, but bucket trucks is boots on the ground. Bucket trucks is they're here in my neighborhood to fix something. So is there a plan to scale up the number of boots on the ground bucket trucks that are coming?
Absolutely, and that's what you're seeing here today. These are classes that will continue because we're installing a lot more technology. We're installing a lot more lines. We're installing a lot of more equipment out in the field. So we're going to need more linemen to take care of it. We don't want to end up as a previous administration where they neglected this for a couple of decades. Everything we install, we want to be able to maintain well.
And adding to that, right, as we are rebuilding the grid, the grid that we are building here is a more automated grid, so it will require fewer trucks in the long run, right? So some of the...
Give me an example of something that could happen that an automated grid would take care of.
Absolutely. So on the operations control center, they can have visibility over a breaker that opens up. We don't need to send a crew out there to close the breaker. It could be operated remotely through SCADA.
But put that in terms of, like, if my power goes out at home or I see a line flickering or whatever, like, give me an example of how someone at home, an average customer, would see the benefit of an automated line.
So it will be fewer interruptions because the system will be automatically trying to restore and get the line back into service. And on the operations control center, someone from a computer can see that your light is out, and with a push of the button, they can restore your power easily and faster without sending a crew out there that will turn into a danger, situations, raining, danger of working with energized equipment. That can be done remotely.
Another example that I can give you is we're installing intelligent devices out there that you can control, like Juan said, in a central location. If you install, I'm going to give an example, 3 devices on the circuit, and you have a problem, these devices will isolate the problem. And if you're not in the problem area, your service will come back on right away. If you're in the problem area, we'll know better where the problem is located and don't have to spend as much time searching for it and can get right on it and fix it.
Interesting. All right, talk to me about this voice of the people thing. So when I put out and I say that I'm coming to do a story on the power, I would say the overwhelming amount of responses are anti-Luma, fire Luma, Luma is bad. And what they do is they send me videos of lights flickering because of the voltage. They send me bills that are like crazy high. So I want to talk to you about that. What do you say to the people who are experiencing basically light shows in their own homes with the voltage going in and out, appliances that are being ruined? What's your message to them?
Well, first, Department Voice of the Customers is the first one in Puerto Rico or for utility, right? We opened this new department, we're listening, we're taking care of the social media, we're listening to surveys, and we know exactly what the customer is saying, right? And we know that they're speaking pretty loud. What we have to say to customers is that every single day, we're working on building something stronger for them. Our contact center is a center that is, all employees are well trained and they can answer any questions from customers. And we do have lines that are dedicated only for emergencies. So if customers is seeing something that is in danger of an emergency, they should call right away. And we have all the agents are ready to answer and take care of that emergency situation. We are listening to our customers. We know exactly what is going on, and we can assure them that this is going to take a while, but this is going to be a beautiful place for them to because we will building something stronger. We're building something better for those customers. We understand and we're listening to the frustration. We all Puerto Ricans, most of us, we live here. We do have outages in our homes too. We still have appliances that are, that we need to replace, and we understand the frustration of our customers. We really do, and we're listening to it. But we want them to know that every single day, we're putting ourselves out there just to make sure that this is getting better. This is our home. This is our people. We're working for them.
So it reached a critical point recently, right? You've got the resident commissioner, Jennifer Gonzalez, who wants to cancel the Luma contract and get rid of Luma. You've got the governor, who I'll interview this afternoon. The governor has said, I'm losing my patience, right? What's the response, Don?
We hear the people. Of course, we're frustrated. We know we have to work and improve on our outage. That's why we formed this outage response and reduction task force. And we're committed to reduce by 20% in 90 days as far as the outage, the extent of the outage. We continue to work on improving the number of outages, but we have this special task force because we heard the people and we're responding to it. We are confident we're doing a great job, but we hear the frustration. We're equally frustrated.
And I want to talk to you about the task force, but I think I want to get all of you. I had someone who's very involved in the whole Luma operation and with ties to the government, who said to me, we can't go back to PREPA. It would be too bad for us. Luma is doing a good enough job, even though people might not understand it. But this person said to me, Luma is terrible at communicating. Do you see that? Do you acknowledge that maybe Luma hasn't been as good at communicating the message and responding quicker to complaints?
That's interesting because Voice of the Customer Department, which is taking care of all the channels which customer will communicate with Luma, we take care of that data. We analyze the data and we create reports and, for example, top 3 complaints of the customer for us to understand what is going on out there and how the strategy should be around what the customer is asking for. So we really are understanding what is going on, and the data that we're using is not that we are listening, we are analyzing the data and we're creating plans and strategy around that voice.
What does the data show?
The data show that the first complaints is outage, obviously, and bills complaints are the second one, and the third are some waiting times. But that's the lower. But to be honest, we know that the outage complaint is the first one, and the data said so, and the bill complaints.
In recent weeks, people have been protesting in the streets and really making their voices heard. Luma said we're going to start a task force to do better. What are you going to do?
We're going to bring more people. We already received more people, more linemen.
Okay.
We are working with vegetation. We already cleaned 700 miles of vegetation, so we started again.
Because some power poles are covered by trees and branches.
And yes, vegetation here in Puerto Rico, it's a very #1 big issue.
Right.
We're gonna in the grid, we're gonna put the disclosures that we show you later on, that they're gonna go in the line. That was what Juan explained. Also, we're gonna do aerial thermal. It's like we go in the helicopter and we inspect the line, and we could see the hot spots where we have to fix them from the critical lines. We're gonna do our aerial, and we're gonna do it in cars too. The other thing that we're gonna do, it's we are working with the crews so they could be more effective with the critical lines of the hospitals. So we already indicate like 67 hospitals that are the most, that have critical failure maybe in their generators. So we are working with key accounts and with customer experience so we could engage with them and help them with their own substations.
All right, you're a Puerto Rican. What do you say to the Puerto Ricans who are watching this who are completely against Luma?
Well, I could say that I worked for PREPA 26 years and I could retire. But as I said, and I suffer a lot with Maria and my family too. I come from Naguabo. It's a very little town, and we were for months without electricity. So I see Luma as a hope, like I told you. And I see how they work hard. And for me, you know, I get at my job at 6:30 and
Right, but what do you tell Puerto Ricans who come up to you on the street when they find out you work for Luma and they say they're anti-Luma? What do you say to them?
I tell them that we are working hard. I tell them that I see a lot of opportunities. I tell them that I see a new generation coming that are in Luma. And I tell them that I don't want my grandsons and granddaughters to pass what I pass. You know, if we have, or we are hit for another hurricane. Yes.
Don, how do you win people over?
We have to show them progress,
Yeah.
and we have to tell them what we're doing.
That's right.
More
Communicate.
and but we have to explain to them why what we're doing is important and will pay off in the long term.
Yep.
And that's where we come in and we're modernizing the utility that I mentioned earlier. It's about people, process, and technology. Now, there are things that we're having to buy that are not off the shelf at our local hardware store.
Yeah.
So it takes time to get it in. Now, the thing
Can't
that
just drive it from a nearby state either.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. So one of the things we ask for is patience from people. However, we totally understand why people are frustrated, because if you're on the other side, you don't care. You just want an instant fix.
Well, and the Puerto Ricans have been dealing with it for decades.
That's right.
Decades.
That's right. And it's impossible to convey the state that the grid was in. People just don't believe it.
How would you describe the power grid in Puerto Rico before Maria?
Before Maria, I would say it was neglected, deteriorated.
And after?
Afterwards, I'd say it's still neglected. And whatever was put together after Maria, temporary, is still temporary.
Because, and I think this is important to know, after Maria, in the 3 or so years after Maria, before Luma came in, when the government was still running the power authority, were there big fixes, or were they just like sort of bubblegum and duct tape Band-Aids?
There were no big fixes. As a matter of fact, they weren't even fixing things. They would take something, bypass it,
Right.
not fix it, not replace it.
Got
So
it.
it's in even worse condition than.
That's important to understand in terms of how could nothing have happened in 5 years. Why did you leave Puerto Rico?
I was looking for better opportunities for my daughters, and to be honest, the utility here, the power outages back in the days, were bad. And I was like, I want to move out to a place that I can find, hope, and I can get better opportunities for my daughters. Which back in those days, they were teenagers.
Why'd you move back?
Because after Hurricane Maria, I was not able to get a hold of my family for about 2 months. The company that I was working for, they sent a crew out here. They sent 60 people out here. I asked to be part of that initiative, and because I was managing larger projects back in the States, they told me, no, you can't go. And that for me was a heartbreaker. And I saw the opportunity now to come back and put my 2 cents here in the island. That's what I'm here for, because I'm capable. I know what the system takes to rebuild the system. And I'm here to help the people of Puerto Rico, help my family, help myself, and get Puerto Rico in the forefront of the utilities in the world.
Thank you, Juan. Thank you, Noria. Thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, I appreciate it.